Hello, everyone. My name is Joy Francis. I am Executive Director of Words of Colour Productions, and it gives me great pleasure to say that today I am speaking to the award-winning novelist, literary activist and playwright Alex Wheatle, whose life story is featured eponymously in Steve McQueen's 5-part film series Small Acts, which looks at the West Indian experience of racism and resilience in Britain in the 1960s to the 1980s, and it will air on BBC One and BBC iPlayer, followed by Amazon Prime. Now, we're also joined by Sheyi Cole, hailed as one of Screen International's Stars of Tomorrow for 2020. He plays young Alex, and also Elliot Edusah, who is Digital Spy's rising star, one of the 30 Black British talents for 2020, and he plays Alex's best friend, Valin. So it is great to see you all, and just to say congratulations on Alex Wheatle. That feels weird, Alex, knowing you.
It does.
and the eponymous episode in the 5-part filmed anthology or miniseries, directed by Steve McQueen, Small Acts, which is going to be screening throughout mid-November right through to December. And I mean, first of all, congratulations, I have to say. And it is amazing, clearly, and timely, but we'll talk a bit about that shortly, as I'm sure it has not escaped anybody, even though Sheyi and Elliot, you were both, must be a twinkle in your eye, in your parents' eye, and even your parents were twinkles when, in terms of when Small Acts is set, from the 60s to the 80s. But how are you all feeling? Because it's momentous. It's momentous anyway, but it's even more momentous because of us being now in our second lockdown. And so, and the topics that are dealt with across the 5, including yours, Alex, are so relevant and timely. Anyone want to respond to that?
Well, I was doing okay until I think I saw on Sheyi's Instagram that he had taken an image from, I think it was a bus shelter. And it was big.
Yeah.
So that hit me. That really, I thought, oh my God, it's happening.
Yeah.
Sheyi?
Yeah, no, it's extremely timely, as you said. I think it's quite mad, as Alex said, that things are actually happening. Things are, we started filming this a year ago, over a year ago. And now to see how things have been released, how in terms of billboards to trailers to interviews, it is really quite a lot. It's quite a lot to take in, but it's also really exciting, really, really exciting, and extremely important. And I'm happy. I'm not happy we're in a lockdown too. That I'm never happy that, but the fact that people are going to be in their homes together as a family, and have the opportunity to watch this. In a time where I think, it needs to be seen, is quite encouraging. So, yeah.
Elliot?
Yeah,
how do you feel?
It's a long time coming, but I feel great. I feel happy. I'm excited for the young people to see this in London. I feel like a lot of us do know about what was going on in the 80s, but I feel like there isn't any physical representation that we can look back at. And also I feel like there's so many hidden stories in our culture that should have been told years ago, and that a lot of young Black people should know growing up, because they are, I wouldn't even say ancestors, because these people are still alive, you know what I mean? These people are the people that were here before us, a generation before us. So I think it's crucial. Alex Wheatle, alongside all the other shows, I think they're incredibly educational. And I think with all the politics that's happening in the world right now, especially with the Black Lives Matter situation and race relations around the world, I think it's important to highlight that it's not only an American issue, and that us British Black people also went through those trials and tribulations in the 80s and still go through today. And I think sometimes it can almost become very foreign to people and people feel detached away from them because it's in America, but these same things were happening to our our people that we walk past in Brixton when we in the high street, and aunties and uncles. So I think it's incredibly important.
Absolutely.
I'm from, a particular generation. I know for me, and Alex, I'm sure you feel the same. It's incredibly heartening to hear the next generation, the current generation, expressing with such wisdom, their take on it. And that's encouraging for us. And I want to come to you, Alex, now. Alex Wheatle, about Alex Wheatle. The fact that you're a writer, you've written adult fiction, you've written YA, historical fiction, plays, and here you are handing over your story to two other people, Steve McQueen and Alistair Siddons.
Yeah.
How on earth? That's huge trust. What made that happen for you to make that big decision?
To be honest, Joy, I kind of hesitated because the whole thing kind of overwhelmed me. We was in the writer's room. And Court loves to tell this story, apparently.
He's told me that story too, but yeah.
We was in the writer's room. And Steve, he came in the morning, and we all had our coffees and our breakfast. And Steve says, right, guys, I really want something about a young guy who's been through institutions and suffered. And then Alice's hand went up. And when he pointed at me, he said, Alex, your story. I've researched you. I know all about you. For what? and then Steve looked at me. He said, Alex, are you holding out on me? So I began to tell him my story. And Steve, in his excited way, he said, genius. And so the very next day, I brought in some copies from my social services files. And from that moment on, when everyone in the writer's room had read this, it was decided that they have to do this story. And to be honest, I was overwhelmed. I remember saying to Coulter after that day, I said, should I do this? And Coulter looked at me like I was crazy. He said, Alex, are you kidding me? So that's how it happened. So I went home and told my family. They all dropped on the floor. And then, to be honest, I took my time in calling my mother, because obviously this is going to be a massive thing for her. She lives in the US with my sister. So I had to kind of build up to that, emotionally prepare for that. And, she's aware of it, and, her hearing's going, but she's looking forward to it too, because it's coming out on Amazon Prime. So it's a big deal for them too, on my family, the other side of the Atlantic.
I can understand your caution. The whole thing, the fact that, you were in care, predominantly white institutions. You then, moved to Brixton, where you rediscovered yourself and your identity through music and, the arts. And then clearly 1981 Brixton uprisings, you were arrested. It covers the early years of your life. And of course, there would be caution. In a way, Alistair gifted you, but at the same time, there's responsibility, isn't it? One, in terms of how the story's told, but then how you tell those who feature, not necessarily favorably, but you've healed, you have a good relationship with your family now, to have that in the public domain, so...
Yeah, it's a big deal, a very big deal. And I think that's probably why I hesitated, because of the impact it might have on my siblings, because obviously, me being in care was no fault of theirs. And also with my mother, where there's that guilt thing. And to be honest, it was no fault of hers, because she had no idea that I was in care. And so there was a lot of things to process for me. But now looking back, it's an incredible opportunity, because it's been mentioned already that Steve wanted to tell these untold stories, and it's given an incredible opportunities for not just me, but my fellow writers and the young actors as well, all throughout the series. It's wonderful time, and I'm really hoping that's going to kick off an avalanche of our storytelling on the screen.
Well, Sheyi, I'm going to come to you because you have the daunting task of playing Alex.
Yeah.
And he's contextualized it for us, and you play him. And as a young man, what was that like, knowing that one, you're playing him, it's entitled after him, and he's in the space.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. Nah, you know what? I feel honored. I've been given the opportunity. I feel so privileged that people like Steve, Gary Davey, the casting director, and everyone on the team, including Alex and his family, really supported me and just gave me the space to work, to be a creative, and to really get my hands in everything. And I'm, really, really happy that Alex was so open with his story, and a lot of respect going out, because I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I really don't know if I could do that. And to put the trust in me and all my fellow actors is a lot. So there was a huge amount of pressure, yes, but because everyone's so nice and everyone really wants to tell the story to the best of its ability. Obviously, it's about Alex and Alex Wheatle's journey, but it's bigger than just one story, So it was extremely fun too, really.
And also something that has come through consistently about working with Steve is about being collaborative, and having that opportunity to infuse your thoughts and ideas and creativity into the process. If you want to say a bit about that, I mean, was that your experience, and how did you find that? Because if no two directors are the same, but normally you don't hear collaborative. You usually hear that in the indie sector,
He honestly as a director, as soon as I stepped foot into that door, in the reading, just fuels you with encouragement and just and just pure energy, and he's so open to whatever, what's the word I'm looking for, whatever ideas you have for everything. He uses like the I would want to say the script almost is like a skeleton. Like it's literally the fundamentals, and then you have so much room to just to find different things. It's like freedom within the form, as they say. Like you've got your parameters, and he just gives you space to just literally do whatever you want to do. And he's not a person that will shut down an idea. He'll always listen, take it in, and then see how it works, how it works to put it in. So yeah.
That John Boyega more or less testified to that as well. I mean, Elliot,
yes,
you play Alex's friend Valin.
Yes.
So do you want to say a bit about, because obviously Alex is in the public domain, he's been very open with his story. What can you say about Valin and playing him, the character Valin?
So it was an honor to play Valin, just as Sheyi said, playing Alex was an honor. First thing I wanted to know was, who is Valin? Tell me everything. And Alex was just great. Like, I even went to meet him in Clapham. I went to his house and he welcomed me, gave me a drink. We talked about him and what he meant to Alex, and how they met and how their relationship grew, and how the music brought them together as friends. And it was almost that compadre that you have growing up, that kind of grounds you and makes you feel supported. And it was also, I feel like Valin had that influence on Valin in Alex in that way, where if Alex didn't want to do something, he'll be like, come on, like, let's do it. Like, he'll push him to do that. And it was all that relationship that all great friends have. And for me, it was knowing that the real Valentine had passed away. It was something that I had to take extremely seriously, and something that I really wanted to give my all into, because I didn't see it as me. It wasn't about me. It was more about servicing the story and telling the story in the best way possible, and trying to detach myself from all the you know, the industry stuff and all the kind of the pretenses of the industry, and just really focus on the story and try and tell it with as much truth and authenticity. And hopefully I haven't been able to see it yet, but hopefully we've been able to get that on camera and people really connect to it. Because one thing about that time is that I feel like Black people and the Black community, there was a togetherness that we see today in a very different way. But I feel like a lot of the youth, there's a lot of conflict, and I feel like it was a different time where it was majority of the time Black people were communicating together and connecting together, and it was much more us fighting against the establishment rather than fighting against each other. And it's getting your head around that and understanding, oh, this is not gang era. This is pre everything. This is when we're all together. We're all going through a struggle and we're all fighting for the next generation. So it was such a blessing. It was so educational. I learned so much. Working with Sheyi was amazing. Just seeing him bring the character to life and reading the script and having my own ideas of what the character was like, and then seeing Sheyi absolutely execute that in such an amazing way. It was such a privilege having Steve's family on set, having Steve on set, supportive, having Alex's family on set and Alex as well. So if we had any questions, we could just call him up or text him. It was a very easy process because everyone was so open. And sometimes in filming, it's very hard because you have to invent so much stuff because everyone's moving at 100 miles per hour. You don't have time to kind of settle down, knuckle down, get all the questions out. And I felt that we really got that with this process. And it was such an amazing experience, life-changing experience. I'll never forget this film. And I hope every young kid in the world gets to see this film because it's crucial. It's a crucial film.
Crucial Raka.
Crucial Raka.
Yeah.
Elliot, your points really takes me swiftly onto my and with great ease to my next question, because I mean, outside of the fact that I would imagine now you both have been spoilt in a way because you're going to go into sets expecting this to be the same. I mean, it's a bit like what was said, by Lupita and Letitia, for example, in Black Panther. Being on a set, collaborative, people, Black people, being open, sharing ideas, and it feels like this is sort of, the British version of that. I want to ask you both, Sheyi and Elliot, what impact it's had on you being directed by a Black man, playing a role of a Black character being central, Black male character, British character being central, and it being co-written by a Black man, in this case, Steve McQueen. How has that filtered through for you? What impact has that made, and what has that inspired within you regarding your future career? Because this is, let's be honest, exception.
I think for myself, it's taught me never to ever compromise who I am. In any set that I go to, any institution that I'm in, I'm never ever going to compromise who I am, because I was lucky enough for my first ever experience to be in a place and an environment where I could be myself unapologetically, and that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And from primary school, I mean, I've grown up in a predominantly white area. As Alex will know, I grew up in Bromley, not far from where he grew up, and it was with his friends. So I've always, to an extent, had to compromise myself or have to tiptoe around certain people. But going into that set and just seeing Black faces, happy Black faces, all expressing themselves how they want to express themselves, I will never, ever, ever forget that. And, I'm lucky enough that my next job I've gone into is another Black director, predominantly Black cast. So, I've been blessed there again, but, that's not going to be the case always. But I will always, in every, from the next film, from Steve's film, I'm just taking all these bits, putting them in my pocket, never forget them, and just use them. Because, we are who we are, and I'm not going to change for no one, really.
Elliot?
I think just it's going into set and knowing that the man in charge looks like one of your uncles or your dad. It's I can't put it into words, because just coming in and seeing that a Black man is in charge and he's got everything under control, and if you need anything, you go to him and he will sort it out and he'll fix it, and he brought everyone together and he's given you this opportunity. I think it's so touching, because a lot of the time in the industry, you don't get that luxury of being able to work with someone that knows you in a different way, in a cultural, spiritual way, where there's no tiptoeing around. Steve will just get to the point, because he knows, look, I see you, I see where you're going, and I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to give you advice. And Steve was never one to hold back for advice. I've learned so many things from how to work as a professional, and also just etiquette as actors, and skills and little tricks and things that I can just put in my toolkit. But like Sheyi, I had a blessing working with Reggie Yates and doing a film with him, and him being a director as well. And also working with another Black director, it has such a profound effect on you, because you gain confidence. You gain confidence in yourself, and I think that confidence is key. Is key for an actor, because sometimes you might have huge stints between jobs. You might have a huge break, and just working with someone that has that spiritual and cultural connection, I feel like it just gives you that confidence to know, you know what, I don't have to be anything other than myself. I can be the rawest, purest version of myself and not feel like I have to tighten it up or neaten it up in a way. And yeah, man, I think that will always stay with me. And Steve McQueen is someone that I've grown up watching. He's definitely my favorite director, and he always had been before I even worked with him. So he was one of those kind of bucket list goals, maybe when I'm 40 years old, 45, and I'm a seasoned actor, you know, I've worked around, I've worked with everyone, then I get to work with Steve when I'm at my A game. But it's to be so young and to be able to have that great opportunity, and I'm sure Sheyi feels the same way, it's such a blessing, because it just kind of makes me think, okay, we've done this, so we can achieve more. And Steve has been able to kind of motivate me to achieve more and reach higher, and to see that, you know what, I can work with a director that's won an Oscar, even though I'm a young Black boy from East London. You know what I mean? And it just spiritually keeps me going. It keeps me going. So whenever I get a no, I'm like, for an audition, I'm like, oh, but yeah, man, I work with Steve, and Steve's won an Oscar. So come on, Elliot, come on, get back on it, get back on it. Keep having that faith, and it does do that. And sometimes I've been at a point where I've been like, oh, maybe it's not going to work out. Maybe it's not going to work out. But that just keeps me going and just keeps me motivated. And I thank him for that.
Well, you mentioned the word seasoned, and I want to apply that to you, Alex, because you're seasoned. You've been around a long time, and you've created a great body of work, you know, to add to the Black canon. I would imagine, though, for you, this also has resonated and impacted on you as an artist, as a creative as well. I mean, what has the process, how has it shaped or reshaped your approach or vision, and even view of yourself?
Well, I just want to take on what Elliot's saying, is that it gives you that self-worth. It tells me that our stories are important, doesn't matter who you are, whether you grew up in East London, whether you grew up in Bromley, our lived experiences, my lived experiences, they're just as valuable, just as worthy as anybody else's. And that's what gives me confidence as well, because Joy, you know, sometimes in my career, I've had my ups and downs. I might not necessarily have the plaudits early on in my career, even though I felt I was doing some wonderful things. You know, that the plaudits only came after when I started to write YA, but I still treasure those early books. I still think they're standouts, I really do. And so it kind of affirms my belief that what I was doing right, you know, and the stories that I was creating and producing, they can sit alongside anybody else's, all because they're set in Brixton or, I don't know, South London or anywhere else, or in Jamaica. It doesn't take away from the worth that they are. It doesn't take away from the characters that I'm writing about, because they all deserve a place in fiction or on stage or on eventually even TV screen or cinema screen. And this is the wonderful thing about the whole series, that Steve McQueen is giving worth and value to those stories and those characters. So I'm very proud of that.
I just a couple more questions, really. If anything, this is the last one. George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, John Boyega's impassioned speech, Windrush scandal, now Small Axe, is landed at a unique time, and at a time when it's most needed, but at a time when it can't be dismissed, because everything that it represents and portrayed is being reflected to us every day. But also the fact that we can be here in this space with intergenerationally, which has been a strong theme through all 5 of the Small Axe films, shows progress as well. So what impact do you hope the series has on Black Britons? I'll start with you, Elliot, because you touched on that right from the off.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just want to start with you.
I just want to say, I'll be very quick with this. Going in school, we watched Of Mice and Men. My parents forced me to watch Roots, and they put me through that because they thought it was important for me to see how Black people were being treated around the world. And I think this is our roots. This is us as Black British people. This is our roots. And it sends, like, I got shivers in my spot, like my body's tingling saying this, because I think this is going to be so powerful, because it's going to empower young people to understand, even if you don't have to be Caribbean, you don't have to be African, you have to be Black to understand that this is all part of our culture from both sides, whether it comes from police brutality to racism, segregation. All these topics are our culture, whether it's bad or not, whether we want to accept it as people or not. It's our culture. It's the British Black experience. And I think it's important that young Black people can be able to see that and educate themselves, because it stops ignorance. It stops ignorance. And I can't lie, as a kid, sometimes I didn't know a lot of things. So I was kind of just ignorant about things. And I was very conscious of Martin Luther King and of Malcolm X and all the great Black people of America. But I think it's important that the great writers like Alex Wheatle, stories need to be told, because these are closer to home, and these touch me a lot more in my core, because these are the same people I can walk past when I'm going to buy meat in Brixton, or when I'm watching a show that I love. And I think it's important that young Black people can see people that sound like them, that look like them, and are from where they're from, and they're telling their stories. And I think that's pivotal.
Thanks, Elliot. Sheyi?
Yeah. Coming off that, I think this story needs, not just this story, but actually especially this story, it needs to be played in schools constantly. It needs to be part of the curriculum. Everyone, not just Black people, but everyone needs to understand that this is a part of British history, not just Black British history, but British history. Because, there are people, this is what I loved about Alex's story so much, is that everyone can relate to this. In terms of me, what I took a lot from Alex's story is about survival. And we've all been in different situations and different environments where you are, you have to adapt. Everyone can relate to that. And there's a lot of people, a lot of young Black men as well, that are misunderstood, or that aren't given the time of day because they're just another statistic, or to the system, but they're not given that time, the time that Simeon was able to give to Alex, which inevitably changed your life. So this story will inspire the youth tenfold, will inspire the youth on generation. This is really a part of history, and I'm proud to say that we are a part of history. People's eyes will be open.
Undoubtedly. It's funny enough you speak about education, because the BBC got in touch with me just the other day saying that they're preparing a podcast thing for schools up and down the country, which they're going to interview me about my experiences and the Small Acts series. And so it will be part of the curriculum. Well, that's what they're hoping for anyway. And so we can look forward to that, because I think it's very important that kids all over, not just in the UK, but everywhere else, because these stories are universal. I mean, I remember, Joy, and we spoke about this many times, that in the early days of me being published, my work was optioned for, by the BBC, Channel 4 and so on. And then we do the drafts, we go to the commissioner, and the commissioner would tell us that, this is not relevant to Middle England and so on. But now, with the Small Act series, I hope that our stories are recognised for what they are, and they are universal stories. And so with the result of this, I really like to see our narratives in crime, in romantic fiction, in sci-fi, all across the board, because we can take all those spaces and live in all those spaces and express ourselves in all those spaces. That's what I'd really like to see, a launch of the total Black narrative. So, and I believe it will happen.
Wonderful speaking to you all. And Sheyi, Elliot, all the best with your careers. We'll be watching you now, and looking forward to the legacy that you're leaving, which you've already started. And Alex, always great to see you, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
All the best. Take care.
All the best.
Bye-bye.